At the beginning of this season, Joe appeared to be stepping into another dangerous assignment. But the deeper we get into Season 3, the clearer it becomes that this isn't simply another mission. Something much bigger is happening. Joe has spent years operating in a world where information is everything. She understands that a successful operation depends on knowing who the enemy is, what they want, and how far they're willing to go. But this time, the problem may be that Joe doesn't have the full picture. There are pieces of the puzzle that don't seem to fit together. Events that appear unrelated may actually be connected. And the most dangerous possibility is that someone has been manipulating the situation from behind the scenes. Episode 3 could finally begin connecting some of those dots. Joe may start realizing that the threat isn't simply about the target of the current operation. It could be about something much larger. And if that's true, Joe may have walked directly into a trap. One of the most interesting aspects of Joe's character has always been the conflict between her professional responsibilities and her personal life. She can be completely focused when she's in the field. She can make difficult decisions. She can send people into extremely dangerous situations. But when the danger follows her home, everything changes. That's exactly what makes Season 3 so interesting. Joe isn't just fighting to complete another CIA mission. She's fighting to protect the people closest to her. And that creates a major weakness. Because if an enemy understands what Joe values most, they can use those people against her. Episode 3 could push that vulnerability even further. We could see Joe becoming increasingly distracted by the possibility that her family is being placed in danger. And that could affect her judgment. Joe has always been someone who wants to control the situation. But what happens when she realizes that she can't control everything? One of the biggest questions going into Episode 3 is the identity of the real threat. At first glance, it might appear that Joe and her team are dealing with a conventional intelligence operation. But Lioness rarely makes things that simple. There is usually another layer. Another player. Another objective. And another person who knows more than they're saying. Episode 3 could begin revealing exactly how deep this operation goes. Joe may discover that the people she initially believed were targets are actually connected to something much larger. And if that happens, the entire mission could change. Instead of hunting one enemy, Joe could find herself trying to understand an entire network. That would put enormous pressure on the team. Because every new piece of information could completely change their strategy. While Joe remains at the center of the story, the Lioness, Bobby and the rest of the team are not simply supporting characters. They are the people who have to execute the dangerous plans that Joe helps create. And that means Episode 3 could give us some of the most intense tactical moments of the season so far. The team could be forced to respond to an unexpected development. A surveillance operation could go wrong. A target could disappear. Or worse, the team could realize that they are being watched. That's one of the most dangerous situations imaginable for a covert operation, because once the enemy knows you're there, the advantage begins to disappear. And Lioness is at its best when the characters are forced to operate without knowing exactly what is waiting for them. Another interesting element heading into Episode 3 is the presence of Grady. Whenever a new operator enters an established team, there is automatically going to be a question of trust. Can this person handle the pressure? Can they follow orders? And most importantly, can they be trusted when everything goes wrong? Grady could become increasingly important as the season continues, but there's also another possibility. What if his introduction is designed to create tension within the team? Joe has a very specific way of doing things. Bobby has her own leadership style. And adding new personalities to the operation could create disagreements over how the mission should be handled. That tension could become extremely important later in the season. Now let's get to one of the biggest predictions for Episode 3. This is one of the strongest possibilities because Lioness has repeatedly shown that intelligence operations are built around deception. People lie. People hide information. And sometimes the person standing next to you isn't who you think they are. Joe may begin questioning whether someone inside the operation has been withholding information. It doesn't necessarily mean that person is a traitor. They could simply be protecting another secret. But from Joe's perspective, the difference may not matter. If someone has deliberately kept information from her, trust becomes extremely difficult. And once Joe starts questioning the people around her, the entire operation becomes more dangerous. But there's another story developing underneath the espionage. Joe's family. This may ultimately become one of the biggest emotional conflicts of Season 3. Joe has spent years trying to separate her professional life from her personal life. But the problem with being a CIA operative is that the danger doesn't always stay at work. Eventually, the two worlds collide. And Episode 3 could be where that collision becomes impossible to ignore. Imagine Joe receiving information that someone close to her could be in danger. Does she continue the mission? Does she pull the team out? Does she put her career at risk to protect her family? Or does she make the decision that she spent years making? Those choices are what make Joe such an interesting character. Because there isn't always a right answer. Sometimes she simply has to choose which loss she can live with. As Episode 3 approaches, one question stands above everything else. Who is actually controlling the situation? Joe believes she's investigating a threat. But what if the threat is investigating her? That's a completely different situation. And if the enemy has information about Joe, her team, and her family, then they may have a significant advantage. Joe could suddenly find herself reacting instead of planning, and that is when she's most vulnerable. Because Joe is at her best when she has information. Take that information away, and even someone as experienced as Joe can make mistakes. The first two episodes have established the pieces. Episode 3 could begin moving them into position. We could see the major players becoming clearer. We could discover that certain events were connected all along. And we could see Joe realizing that the mission is much bigger than she initially thought. That would make Episode 3 an important turning point, because once Joe understands what she's really dealing with, she can't simply walk away. She has to decide how far she's willing to go. And more importantly, how much she's willing to sacrifice. So let's break down our 3 biggest predictions for Episode 3. Something from the previous episodes will likely connect to the larger threat. A person. An organization. Or information that initially seemed insignificant. Joe will start putting the pieces together. And once she sees the connection, there's no going back. The operation probably won't go exactly according to plan. Someone could disappear. A target could fight back. Or the team could discover that they're being monitored. That would force Joe and Bobby to improvise. This could be the biggest one. The enemy may discover Joe's vulnerability. And if that happens, her family could become leverage. That would completely change the emotional stakes of the season. If these developments happen in Episode 3, the consequences could continue throughout the rest of the season. Joe may become increasingly suspicious. The team may begin operating with less information, and the people around Joe could start questioning whether the mission is worth the cost. That's when Lioness becomes more than an action thriller. It becomes a story about loyalty, trust, family, and sacrifice. Joe has spent years protecting her country. But Season May 3 force her to answer a much more personal question. Lioness Season 3 Episode 3 has the potential to be one of the most important episodes of the season so far. The mystery surrounding Joe is getting deeper. The threat is getting closer. The team is under increasing pressure, and Joe's personal life is becoming impossible to separate from her professional responsibilities. But the biggest danger may not be the enemy standing across the battlefield. It may be the person standing beside her. Because in the world of Lioness, trust can be more dangerous than a weapon. And if Joe discovers that someone she trusted has been hiding the truth, everything could change. So what do you think? Is Joe being targeted because of the current mission, or is there a much bigger reason behind everything happening to her? And who do you think Joe should trust? Let me know your theories in the comments. If you enjoyed this Lioness Season 3 Episode 3 preview, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our full breakdown when the episode arrives. Until next time, stay sharp, stay dangerous, and remember. In the world of Lioness, the mission is never what it seems.